Welcome to Simulator Review, helping you find quality flight simulation with the world's most comprehensive listings and reviews of simulators. A warm welcome to this episode of our podcast for the flight simulation community. My name's Alexis, and in this episode, as always, I'm joined by my two colleagues from Simulator Review, Andrew and Elliott. Welcome back to the increasing numbers of regular listeners of our podcast. We are pleased to have you back. For those of you who are new to the podcast, we are pleased you found us. You're certainly in the right place for the top podcast on simulator venues and getting the most from your simulator experiences. We hope you stick with us, and we do recommend episodes 1 and 2 for a great introduction to us and our website simulatorreview.com. This episode is the second part of a series of 2 episodes looking at preparing for a simulator session. The first part was in episode 17, where we talked about preparing from the point of view of a novice or a beginner, and in this episode we will look at the same question from the point of view of someone who is more advanced. In our discussion, we will cover how you prepare beforehand and some tips about how to get the most from your session on the day from the point of view of somebody who is more experienced. Before we get into our discussion, it's time once again for our regular simulator news update, where we talk about news at simulatorreview.com and in the wider simulator community. And we go over to Elliott for this. So Elliott, what have you got for some news this week?
Thanks, Alexis. Now, a few podcasts ago, we probably mentioned about our blue pin additions and that we're starting to add some video content to our reviews. And we said that we'd been back up to Simulator Adventures and 737 Pro. I'm pleased to announce these are now live on the website. So if you check out 737 Pro in Blackpool and Simulator Adventures in Manchester, they're 2 of our favourite venues. And we've put 4 videos for each venue up on the website, and you can also find these on our YouTube channel. So be sure to check those out, leave a comment, let us know what you think of the videos, anything you'd like to see, and also if you're a venue or you visit a venue and you'd like us to go there, send us a message and we'll see if we can do the same for there. So what you can expect at each venue is we'll do a little promo, and you'll find that at the top of the page, and then we'll do more of a feature-length video combining all the elements of some simulator flying, a chat with the owners and the managers, and also a walkthrough of the venue. So somebody who's there to pick a venue can go onto one of our blue pins and they'll be well briefed and know what to expect when they get there, and hopefully it will allow you to make a better choice for your simulator venue. And we're also going to push these videos a little bit on social media, Alexis.
Yes, as they're now live, we will be putting these out onto our social media accounts, so onto Twitter and Facebook and Instagram fairly soon, and showing people what we've done. So, as you say, we've started off doing these at some of the venues we've already reviewed, so gone back and done some updates for 737 Pro and Sim Adventures and recorded these videos. And I think the plan is, as we are allowed to go back to venues, we'll start doing them for any new reviews straight away, as well as updating the existing ones we've already got. So I think it really adds a nice string to our bow in terms of bits that we can put in the review. So not only can we talk about on the podcast what they're like, we can write about what they're like, we can take photos, but now we're going to have some videos so people can really see what it's like. And as you say, the walkthrough is a great one, because we can obviously talk about what we think the venue is like, but seeing a walkthrough of the venue, going from entering the door right up to into the sim, really gives you a good perspective of what that venue is like.
Yeah, thanks, Alexis. And as we said earlier, we're really keen to know what you think. So drop us a comment either on one of the social media channels or head over to the page on our website and let us know what you think. If you'd like to see more of them, if it's not your cup of tea, let us know.
And I think, talking about interaction with the website, we're now pleased to see we're starting to get some interaction with our readers and listeners on the Sim Review venue pages now. So we've had some comments from people about venues they've been to, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's something we're really keen to promote. I mean, everyone can go on a website such as TripAdvisor and have a look, but we're really trying to target simulator enthusiasts, and we want people to make properly informed decisions. And it's very good having mine and your opinion, Alexis, and Andrew's for visiting these venues. But what would be great is people who regularly go, or you've been to visit one, head over to that page on our site, drop us a comment, and let us know what you thought. And similarly, owners of these simulators, get in touch with us, drop a comment on the page, or send us an email, and we'll try and include it all. So yeah, we really want to encourage a little bit of two-way interaction, and hopefully those of you listen to the podcasts be able to help us out with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in terms of the owners, as you said, we obviously go and see a sim at one point in time and see what it's like. As we know that quite a few of them, like Simulator Adventures and 737 Pro, we went to have done some updates since we first went over a year ago, and we've been to see some of those. So if you've done some updates to your venues since we've done a review, or since we've put some information up, let us know, and we will endeavour to put that on and update the review, because we want that to be as up to date as possible. So, Elliot, is there anything else that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, just perhaps a little teaser, actually. We've got a tie-up in the pipeline with a local venue to us, and hopefully on social media you'll start seeing a little few challenges and a few teasers, video-wise, a few pictures. So hopefully social media activity for simulator reviews is going to increase quite considerably in the next few months. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that.
Right, thank you very much, Elliot, for the Sim News this week. We look forward to another update in 2 weeks' time on the next podcast.
You're welcome.
In this episode, the main topic of discussion is about preparing for a simulator session. This discussion follows on from the one in episode 17, where we talked about preparing from the point of view of a beginner. And in this episode, we are going to discuss the same, but looking from the point of view of a more advanced sim venue visitor. Is there anything you can do beforehand to prepare, and what kinds of things should you think about doing on the day? Hopefully we can help answer some of your questions and give out some tips which will help you get the most from your session. As this is a topic where myself and Elliot will mostly be giving the answers, we need someone to take up the podcast left-hand seat to lead a discussion. And Andrew is back to take on the role and get some more podcast command hours under his belt. So it's a pleasure to have you back, Andrew, and taking the role as host of the topic discussion.
It's nice to be back in the left seat. I notice you've changed the seat cover. It's a nice merino New Zealand wool there, so well done, mate. Yeah, so we're looking at today's advanced side of things, and one of the things we picked up from last time was the preparation at home. And I think, Elliot, you were a big driver of this, particularly how you can benefit from just a little bit of prep time at home. So what were some of the main things we picked up from last time that you just wanted to reiterate on that, or was there anything more particular for the advanced users?
You're absolutely right, Andrew. We are advocating everything we said in the beginners being good sound advice for whatever level you're at when you attend a simulator. However, we would expect, or we would suggest, that this is a little bit more enhanced and focused for when somebody is more of an advanced level. They could really, really, really do a few things to get the most out of their time and money. And we're assuming these people are regular visitors and they have invested quite a bit of time and money into these sim sessions. So we would say someone that's more advanced would be someone with, say, 5 to 10 visits or more, and a really quite avid, keen interest in flight, airlines, aviation, airports, simulation, etc. So this is definitely a more focused and a more advanced application and advice that we're giving here.
I guess really it's coming down to taking more of an ownership role or lead role in your sim session. So sort of when you're starting out, you don't have the knowledge or skill set to do that. But as you build that experience, it's going, right, if I particularly want to develop as a virtual pilot, you need to know some areas you're going to be really good at and some areas you're going to be a bit rubbish at. And often you find the areas you're rubbish at, the ones you don't really enjoy doing. So that would be one area you'd probably want people to pick up on.
That's absolutely right. Taking ownership is a fantastic phrase, and that'll allow you to get the most out of your session. Now, a lot of the things that we would suggest and say here would be for it just come naturally to people who fit into this bracket. So just to put some meat on the bones there, say you're more familiar, you visited a 737 simulator for the most part, and you've booked a A320 sim, probably a good idea to watch some videos from the flight deck of how A320s fly. The Airbus terminology and phrases subtly different, as we've covered in previous podcasts. And it sounds silly saying that, because I know the kind of people who fit into this bracket will have done that anyway, and that comes as a little bit of common sense. But that's definitely a top recommendation. And we said before, for the novice, contact the venue beforehand. I mean, fantastic suggestion. I know Alexis will cover that a little bit more later on, but by doing that, you can let them know your experience. Maybe you've got a PPL, maybe you've got a few hours on the simulator. Perhaps you want to have a go on things like VATSIM or a particular airport. By taking ownership and by contacting them, they'll be able to tailor that session for you. And I would hazard a guess, make it a lot easier for the instructor. They can prepare themselves appropriately for their customer that's coming in.
And I know it may sound a bit silly, but certainly in the real world for airline pilots, commercial pilots, it's that at home, yes, guys do fly the armchair, particularly in preparation for sim checks and stuff. And okay, we're not at that level, that sort of examination, but you just knowing what you're going to be doing at certain times, where the buttons are and all that, particularly if you're not so familiar, say going from the Boeing to Airbus, really pays dividends in the simulator itself. These things aren't cheap, and if you make most bang for buck just by a bit of armchair time at home, it really pays off.
Yeah, the phrase we use is capacity, isn't it? In the capacity bucket. So that's how sort of mentally challenged you are at a certain point. So say you're on the takeoff roll in an A320, but you're used to a 737, but you know when the calls are going to come. You know the actions on the side stick. What that would do is free up your mind and capacity, give you some space in your capacity bucket to absorb other things that may be going on around you that you weren't expecting or that are new to you. So it's by doing a little bit of prep at home, you're just going to build your capacity for being in the simulator.
Yeah, nice. It's those automated actions and RT and that type of thing. Yeah, really does make a difference. Alexis, we should probably bring it at some point. Alexis, anything from the sort of user point of view that at home things you've done or guys you've spoken with?
Yeah, so as Elliott said, this is going to be probably somebody who's going to be a bit more advanced, been to venues before, probably has a sim on their home PC, and familiar with quite a few things and the tools that are out there and available. So, I mean, the main things they'll probably be used to using are things like Navigraph for charts, which we expect you may well use. A beginner probably wouldn't be looking at charts, obviously, which is what we talked about in episode 17, but an advanced user would be. And also SimBrief, which is a great online tool for creating flight plans, and that's a tool I've used for a number of years now. So there's those things they can use, but also it's thinking at home about what you want to do. So I think it's great if you can come up with a couple of ideas of things you may want to try that you can't try at home, things that you would like to perhaps try that you don't fully understand. Perhaps for some reason you're struggling to understand how to fly a VOR approach, and you just can't understand from the videos you've seen and online, how to do it properly in an aircraft. Great thing to go there, say to the instructor, says, what do you want to do? I've got all this experience at aircraft, but I can't do it. I want to try this, and for you to really go through it with me so I understand it. So that's another great idea to do. Have a think about things like that, and have a think about what you want to do. And there's all sorts of ranges and things we've mentioned in our article of things you can try. So we've put some ideas of fun approaches that you can try. Those are always great to do. Try and do things where you go work through failures. Perhaps you've never sat and worked through failure with a QRH and a co-pilot. So the instructor can act as your co-pilot. These are all things you can try and do, and I think these are kind of the things we think maybe an advanced sim visitor would want to do.
And it's worth adding in that what you've mentioned there, Alexis, is on the article on our website. So you may be listening to that thinking, oh, what was that app called, or what was that chart called again? Do head over to the site and have a look at the article. It gives you those suggested approaches and those tools that Alexis was talking about.
We've talked about things we can sort of think about and do in a session, but advanced users, maybe sort of planning 2 or 3 or 5 sessions in a row over the next few months. What's your advice on someone to sit down? Is there a website, or is there someone can sort of work through a plan, a bit like going through a type rating or a flying program? Is there somewhere someone can go to think, actually, this is sort of steps I can work through or measure their performance and how they're tracking? Alexis, anything you've used or others?
I haven't found anything which ties all that in together, as you say. I think what we've seen some venues start to do is to do those kind of things themselves, to offer things like virtual type ratings over a number of sessions, where you can effectively, you pay for, 10 hours worth of sessions, and it's not just the time, it's the structure of a course they will give you to give you a virtual type rating at the end. So they will take you through the stages of doing a couple of different things on the aircraft: familiarization with systems, how to program the CDU, how to deal with failures, how to prepare and brief for a landing. So there are things that are out there which you can get from the venues themselves, and by all means ask about these things when you go. So I think one of the things I was going to mention as well is, if you're going to the venue a few times, ask about things like discounts if you're buying a number of sessions, ask about things like virtual type ratings. I think the venues we've seen that we rate highly for the quality of the sim generally offer these things as well, because they're really interested in helping you develop, as well as just providing an hour's worth of fun on a simulator for a beginner.
Yeah, there's some really good programs out there now that, those venues are sort of thinking about this for the more advanced user. You can see they've put thought into putting something together that, not only adds their bottom line, but overall provides a greater value to someone who's really wanting to develop to a high level of flying.
And there are some really good tutorials out there for advanced level users on specific topics. So there are things that are there, just not in a kind of a full course kind of structure. So I think some of the things in terms of YouTube that I would mention, Flight Deck to Sim is a great YouTube channel which is done by a current 737 captain, and he does specific tutorials on certain subjects. So similarly for the Airbus, there's A320 Sim Pilot. Another recent addition to YouTube has really done a lot of tutorial videos as well about how certain things work in the Airbus, which I think he's more familiar with. So there are things that are out there.
So we've spoken about sort of things we can sort of plan and things we can do. Now, there might be someone out there thinking, they might be a little hesitant going along to a sim venue and going, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do so forth. Alexis, from your experience, how open are the sim providers normally to you coming along going, this is the sort of thing I want to plan for?
Generally, I think normally they're very good at accommodating that. So I think normally, regardless of what level you are, the instructor, when they meet you on the day, will normally ask, what your level of experience is and what it is you want to do. If you've got a few ideas, either, as we said before, if you can talk to them before and just say what you're thinking, or if you go with the kind of a couple of ideas, they will normally try and accommodate that.
Elliott, you're sort of from the other side of the divide there, from the instructor point of view. You've dealt right from the beginner right up to quite advanced sim users. How have you found people who have either no idea what they want to do, or those who have come along better prepared, easier to deal with or more difficult to deal with?
Each has its unique challenges. So we do spend the first few minutes when you meet somebody, and in the briefing, you're sizing up what's in front of you, and it's very much for somebody to get the most out of a session. It's got to be pitched correctly at the level your customer is at. There's no point going in talking about flight directors, ILSs, green hydraulic systems if there's a complete novice. If they're a lot more advanced, then that sort of systems information or slightly more advanced phases of flight and procedures would be more appropriate. So we always go along to a session with a basic plan, and we've got a few cards in the deck that we can pull out when somebody we realise what level they're at, and we've got separate sessions that we can then apply at reasonably short notice to make it a good session for them. But if somebody let you know in advance what they want, or at least turns up and tells you what I want. I do remember someone quite close to home coming into a 747 sim with me and rattling off a list of, right, I want to approach into Funchal, want to do an engine failure, want to do an emergency descent. And, for the instructor, it's quite a lot to take in at once, but at least you know what you're dealing with, and you do your very best to work it into a session.
In the previous recording, we looked at the sort of beginner level. We spent a little bit of time talking about the length of session and what you can expect to cover. At the advanced stage, Ali, actually, do you want to just do a quick recap, perhaps of the longer length sessions, an hour, a couple of hours, that advanced user would be expecting to cover?
Yeah, so in a session that I typically did, you would often have more than one participant. But let's take it as an individual has purchased approximately 2 hours in a simulator. We covered sort of what a 1 hour session would do in the novice one, but more advanced, a 2 hour session would be approximately an hour or so of general handling, getting your feel, getting back into the sim. So some takeoffs, some landings, a little bit of general handling, climbing turns, descending turns, etc. And then that would leave the second hour for something a little more airliney, shall we say. And that final hour, you could probably achieve a 35 minute flight in that time. So that doesn't sound like you'll be flying for the whole time, but a lot of that is set up on the gate, programming FMCs, tuning everything you need to do radio wise, and then taxiing out, taxiing in, parking, shutting down. So a 35 minute flight will be tight, but it is achievable. And for those of you who don't fly as much, 35 minutes would be London to Manchester, New York down to Washington DC, or up to Boston. Or one of my favourites when I was on long haul was the Bahrain Doha run. That's the approximate distance or sort of flight duration that you're looking at.
It is perhaps surprising to some how much of that time is actually consumed by the non-flying bits, as you say, just getting the aircraft away from stand to runway airborne, and then prep for your arrival. It's amazing how much that soaks up in the time. So yeah, a short session like that is. It really it does test what you know and what you don't, though, very quickly.
Yeah, and to quantify what you've just said there, when I was on long haul and when you're flying, Andrew, we arrive at the aircraft about 50 minutes before departure, and that is a busy 50 minutes getting the aircraft set up and ready to go. And on short haul, we typically arrive at the aircraft 35 minutes or so before. So a 20-25 minute setup is going to be a busy session getting ready to go out on that 30-minute flight. So this is a tight 2 hours with the general handling and a route, but it's very achievable for somebody who's got the knowledge to get going and that slight more advanced level.
So for those who sort of got the general handling sorted out, takeoffs and landings, they're working through that and some approaches. If they want to try the first sector, it sounds like they would be better to, try and go for a 2 hour time slot on that, because there is a lot to get through in a 1 hour session. So that 2 hours, you're not going to be as rushed with it, and you're going to probably learn a lot more too, because there's a bit more time to explain and so forth.
Yeah, and I think just to pick up on Elliott's point, I think this is one of the key differences between novice level and an advanced level. I think for a novice level, half an hour session is great. That's as much as you want, an hour really. I think for an advanced user, from my own point of view, I would never book anything less than 2 hours, generally with a sim venue, because an hour is probably a bit too constrained about what you can do. And I think what's interesting over the last couple of years, I think more and more sim venues are offering 2 hour blocks straight off on the website. Often what you used to see before is they'd offer half an hour blocks, and maybe if you contacted them, they would do you a price for 2 hours or longer. More and more I see venues offering 2 hours plus on the websites, and I think that's a really good 2 hours is a really good kind of time that you can do. You've got plenty of time, as Elliott said, to do some different things in the first hour, and then maybe bring it all together in the second hour and do a short flight.
Nice one, Alexis. Thank you. I guess we start to wrap up. this riveting conversation for our listeners, which I do hope they've got some useful tidbits out of it. It really does bring us to the last top tips, I guess, that both of you might have for advanced users. Elliott, if we come back to you, top tip or anything you particularly want to summarize for just helping people get the most from their sessions?
Yeah, do a little bit of prep at home, have a think about what you'd like to do, and don't be afraid of letting the instructor know what you want to do. You're paying good money for this session, and as an instructor, we appreciate it when somebody's shown some thought and knows what they want to do, and we do our absolute utmost to facilitate that.
Nice one. Alexis?
I think one of the most important things is think about things that you can do in a sim that you can't do at home. I mean, we expect the people who are fairly advanced probably have access to flight simulation at home, either on the PC or on their tablet. Think about things you can do in that sim session that you can't really do at home. So flying with somebody else, so doing the kind of pilot flying, pilot monitoring roles, either with an instructor or perhaps if you have a friend who's also at your kind of level, both of you go there and do the sim session together with the instructor in the back. Think about things that you'd like to do as well in terms of ideas and challenges or that you want to do. There's plenty of suggestions in the article on our site, so there's plenty you can pick out from there to give you some ideas about what you might enjoy in your session.
Nice one. I guess if I had last 2 pennies, because I am still sitting in the left-hand seat, so before the skipper gets back from his break, it would be don't undervalue the of bringing someone along with you. If you've got someone who's a bit of a simmer or a friend or family member, particularly as you mentioned, similar level, you can learn so much by both of you being in those seats. And the second one would be, if priced correctly, following through a tight rating, tight course, providing structure to your learning, I think is a huge benefit. Even if the costs are a bit much there, I think it advances your learning and you're flying a lot quicker. Whatever that 2 pennies is worth. Thanks for the left-hand seat time again, Alexis. And thanks to both of you for your comments. I hope people will get something from it. And please visit the website for this one, and anything also from the beginners one might be useful for people as well. So, Alexis, you have control.
I have control. Thank you very much, Andrew. I'm glad you're back in the podcast left-hand seat this week. So, there you go, a chat about how to prepare for a visit to a simulator with some tips on how to prepare and what to do on the day for an advanced user. Do have a look at the article that accompanies this on our site, simulatorreview.com. Let us know what you think. What have your experiences been like visiting a simulator? Is there anything else you would like us to cover when it comes to preparing for a visit to a simulator? Also, if you're an instructor at a simulator, have you got any ideas or suggestions about things people could do to prepare if they're an advanced user? Do get in touch and let us know. Either leave comments on our site or get in touch with us on social media. In our next episode, it's time again to have a look at another of the Bluepin featured review simulator venues in our database. And to remind you, these are the ones we've visited in person and done a thorough review on. We'll be having a chat about the venue and our review and letting you know what we thought, so I hope you'll join us again for that in 2 weeks' time. In the meantime, subscribe to our podcast on the podcast service of your choice. We're available on Apple, Google, Spotify and quite a few others, so whichever one you use, you should be able to find us. And if you like what you hear, please leave us a star rating and review. Any 5-star reviews will be read out on the podcast, and we really appreciate your feedback and support. Until next episode, it's goodbye from me, and goodbye from Andrew.
Goodbye.
And goodbye from Elliott.
Cheerio.
Thank you for listening to the Simulator Review podcast. We would love your feedback, so please do comment and rate us. Please follow, share, like and subscribe on all our social media channels, where you can see regular updates on new simulator listings and reviews, as well as our latest articles. Until next time, happy simming.